Assalamualaikum, my name is Siti Farida binti Ahmad and my number is A2103 Now I want to present about the data discrimination. So the first point is the define of the statistic. A statistic is a collection of numbers in the form of graph that help solve a problem. It's also referred to the method of data collection, data processing, analysis to draw conclusion based on data sets, and data analysis performance. We have two types of the data, which is a primary data sources and secondary data sources. So the first point for the primary sources of data is a personal experience or evidence collected for the first time, or new data sources primarily for research purpose. The secondary data collected is from online sources, maybe primary data collected by another researchers. The secondary data are the second-hand data that have been used, collected and recorded by multiple researchers for the purpose of the current research question. Next, we have two types of the variable, qualitative and quantitative. For the qualitative variables, on the other hand, can be grouped or categories. The quantitative variables also have numeric value. Meaningful calculations such as means and standard deviation can be performed on quantitative variables, but not on qualitative variables. Next, we have a type of measurement scales, which is a nominal, ordinal, interval, and ratio. For the nominal, is a nominal scale where the number acts as a tag or labels to classify or identify objects. For the ordinal is a categorical data, also called tier data, which has a higher level and size than nominal, but no arithmetic operations and are meaningful. For the interval, that's make a difference between and two variables measurement in an exact way, not in a relative way where the presence of zero is arbitrary. For the last one is the ratio. Ratio is a researchers can use to compare different and interval. That's all for me. Thank you.
I will continue our discussion. I will explain about numeric descriptive measure. First is species. The mean is 2.73, the median is 2.50, and the mode is 2.0. First quartile is 50.25, third quartile is 45.75, and interquartile is 30.50. For the range is 4, sample variance is 94.50, and the last standard deviation is 9.72. The shape of distribution is skewed to the right because mean is greater than median, greater than mode. Next, for length 1, the mean is 19.73, the median is 19.33, and the mode is 20.45. First quartile is 30.08, third quartile is 23.33, and interquartile is 10.25. For the range is 32.50, sample variance is 60.36, and standard deviation is 7.77. The shape of distribution is skewed to the right because mode is greater than median, greater than mean.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Nur Damia Khairiyah binti Azri and my metric number is A21A2818. I will present the numeric descriptive measure of price. The measurements of central tendency come first. First, we obtain a mean of 128.25. The median class range from 1.7 to 81.62. Consequently, the mode is 46.63 and the median is 77.06. Second, the measurements of position. we obtained 39.13 for the first quartile and 205.2 for the third quartile. When we apply the formula third quartile minus first quartile to the interquartile, we obtain 166.07 as a result. Third, we have arranged that employs the formula maximum data entry minus minimum data entry, giving us 479.5 as the measure of variation. The sample variance is then equal to 12,626.21, and the sample standard deviation, which is equal to the variance square root, is equal to 112.37. And for the final component, the distributions form, we conclude that it is skewed to the right because the mean is higher than both the median and the mode. Next, the numerical descriptive measure of line 3. The measurements of central tendency come first. We obtain a mean of 23, a median class of 21.2 and 27.3, and a value of 22.5 for the median and 23.5 for the mode. We then shift to positional measurements, with the first quartile being 15.8 and the third quartile being 26.9, and the interquartile being the third quartile minus the first quartile, and the answer being 11.1. The range is then calculated by subtracting the maximum data entry minus minimum data entry amounts to arrive at 36.7 as the measure of variation. The standard deviation equals 8.9 when the sample variance, which is 79.2, is squared. Then, since the mode is larger than the mean and the mean is larger than the median, we conclude that the distributions form is skewed to the right.
Hi, my name is Nurnaili binti Azmi. My metric number is A210332. Now, I would like to explain the graphical representation. First of all is histogram. Before we draw the histogram, we need to find the data first. For the histogram, we need to use midpoint and frequency. So, this table 1 shows the data for length 1 frequency with midpoint of each class. As you can see, this is how histogram shows looks like after we inside the data. We can draw the histogram use the previous data that we calculate as well. The horizontal scales represent midpoint. Meanwhile, the vertical scales represent frequency. From the histogram, we can see that the graph label is x-axis with midpoint, so that the graph starts at the first class with 10.2, where the frequency is 40, and ends with the last class is 37.7, where the frequency is 4. Therefore, we can conclude that the highest length, one of which vertical length in centimeter, is between 18.5 until 23.9 because it is the highest frequency compared with other classes. The next graphical representation is line graph. Before we draw the line graph, we need to find the data first. For the line graph, we need to use midpoint and frequency. So this table 2 shows that the data for price frequency with midpoint of each class. As you can see, this is how line graph look like after we inside the data. We can draw the line graph, use the previous data that we calculate as well. The horizontal scales represent midpoint, meanwhile the vertical scales represents frequency. From the line graph, we can see that the graph starts at 41.66, where the frequency is 32, and the graph ends at 441.31, where the frequency is 2. From this, we can conclude that the highest price of which is from class 1.7 until 81.62 because it has the highest frequency compared with other classes.
Assalamualaikum. My name is Izzatul Akila binti Hamdan, a metric holder A2102 frequency. I will present section 5, statistical analysis using SPFF. 5.1 Numerical descriptive measure. Like the two tables show, it shows numerical descriptive measure for the price, length 1 and length 3. calculated by using SPAS and manually. There are differences in mean, median, mode, standard deviation, variance, range, quartile 1 and quartile 3 for the two types of calculations.
Next is hypothesis testing. It has 5 steps to make hypothesis testing. Firstly is state null hypothesis and alternative hypothesis. Secondly is state the level of significance. Thirdly is compute test statistic. Next is decision rule. And lastly is making a decision and forming a conclusion.
5.3 Correlation analysis. Correlation is a statistical approach that demonstrates how closely two variables are related to one another or the degree of relationship between the two. When changes in one variable tend to be accompanied by consistent and predictable changes in the other variable, a relationship occurs. The distribution matrix shows the two variables that are related to one another, which are length 1 and length 3, price and length 1, and price and length 3. The points on the scatter plot appear to form a line that slopes higher from left to the right, indicating that the variable have a positive association or relationship. 5.4 Confidence interval. A confidence interval is a range of values that are likely to occur for the population parameter. It shows the likelihood that a parameter will fall between two values near the mean. The degree of uncertainty or certainty is a sampling process is measured by confidence interval. A 95% confidence interval is a range of values above and below the point estimate where the true value in the population is 95% likely to reside. The remaining 5% represents the potential that the true value is outside the confidence interval. 5.5 Prediction modeling. The most popular type of regression analysis is multiple linear regression. It enables the use of many variables at the same time to explain variance in a continuous dependent variable. It also enables the isolation of the unique effect of one variable on the constant dependent variable while keeping other variables in mind. As a result, every value of the independent variables has the potential to be connected to the dependent variables. As the outcome, the model is represented as y equal to beta 0 plus beta 1 x1 plus beta 2 x2 plus beta 3 x3 plus beta 4 x4 plus epsilon, where y is the value of the dependent variable, beta 0, beta 1, beta k are parameters, x1, x2, xk are non-constant, epsilon the error terms. 5.5.1 Descriptive statistics. Descriptive statistics show the central tendency of the middle or expected value and the distribution of the variables responses. 5.5.2 Correlations. A correlation matrix is a square table that displays the present correlation coefficients for several variables in a dataset. The present correlation coefficient quantifies the linear relationship between two variables. From the table, 0 indicates no linear correlation between the two variables. 5.5.3 Variable insert and remove. The variable insert displays the independent variable that we include in the regression model. The variable marked variable remove has been removed from the regression model. 5.5.4 Model summary. Model summary lets specify many models in a single regression operation. This indicates the number of models recorded. RR is the correlation between the observed and expected values of the dependent variable and is the square root of R squared.
5.5.5 is ANOVA. The p-value from the ANOVA table is 0.000, which is less than 0.05. Therefore, at least one of the two variables, which are length 3 and length 1, can be used to price of fishes at several places. 5.5.6 is coefficient. For every unit increase in length 3, the price of fishes at several places will decrease negative 23.311, while the length 1 of fishes remains unchanged. Similarly, for every unit increase in the length 1, the price of fishes at several places will increase 41.223 and the length tree of the fishes remain unchanged. Lastly is 5.5.7 is normal p-plot and scatter plot of regression. First is normal p-plot. It shows the cumulative frequency of the distribution of standardized residuals obtained from the model against the residuals associated with a normal probability graph scale. A straight diagonal line indicates that the data is regularly distributed. Next is scatter plot of regression. The scatter plot in the image compares the regression standardized residual to the predicted value. The scatter plot clearly shows that its size tends to decrease and increase as the projected value increase.
My name is Fatina Suhaila Binti Sudirman. My number matric is 8182471. Here I want to explain about concluding NIMAT. We have two main branches of statistics, which is descriptive statistics and inferential statistics. Descriptive statistics include data arrangement, summary, and presentation. The data is displayed using table and graph. The characteristics of the data are described in straightforward language. In contrast, inferential statistics involve drawing generalization about a population that is frequently composed of a sizable number of individuals who have a common set of traits. The information that has been acquired and examined in this way can be used to perform descriptive statistics like mean, mode, and median. We may learn about the data, how it was processed, how it interpreted, and how it was based on theoretical model and the data population in this report. So, in this report, we also use statistical package for social science and is SPSS.